Hello, Indiana County. Hope you're all doing well. My name is Colleen Brady, and I'm an independent documentary filmmaker and artist. Last year, I directed a documentary series called Geronimo, which is about two women and their passion for circus arts. But now it's time for me to show you how to tell your story and create a documentary with all the tools that are available to you. Before anything, you need an idea. Documentary filmmaking is different than narrative in the sense that you can't always plan or predict what's going to happen. There's no script, so it's really up to you to shape the story as you film. That requires a pretty intimate knowledge of story structure. As we all know, there's a beginning, middle, and end, with tension that rises and falls depending on the events. But that can also be interpreted as first introducing a problem or situation, then delving into the tension or friction that this problem or solution creates, and then having a resolution, a realization, or a relief from that tension or friction. Before setting off and filming, you should have a semi-solid concept or vague story structure about what your documentary is gonna capture. So, for example, my workshop project is about my housemate Charlie, who is a freelancer and obviously impacted by COVID-19. Now, when I was thinking about this project, I knew I wanted to work with the themes of freedom while in quarantine, which seems innately contradictory. When you're asking your subjects questions, you should remain neutral and unbiased. So ask, how is this quarantine affecting you? Rather than, how are you negatively impacted by COVID-19? You should also think about keywords that may come up in your interview so that you can shape and corral the story as the interview goes on. We all have different resources, but whether you have a smartphone, a DSLR, or your family's old camcorder, you can use anything when it comes to capturing an image. The real difference between these cameras is their dynamic range. Dynamic range is essentially how well the camera sensor can capture the lightest lights, the darkest darks, and the light intensities in between. A lot of times, if your camera sensor has a low dynamic range, you'll get bad digital artifacts, like grain. However, you can distract from a lot of bad digital artifacts by properly exposing and taking the time to compose interesting and appealing frames. With little equipment, you'll most likely be utilizing a lot of natural light. And with natural light, you should be aware of these things. Color, which is determined by time of day, ranging from orange to blue. Intensity, which is the distance your subject is from the light source. Quality, which is how harsh or soft the light will be. And of course, direction, which is determined by the time of day. There are an infinite amount of ways that you can set up your interview, but your decisions should somehow support your overall concept. So you can direct your subject to look straight into the camera for a more confrontational effect, or you can have them look slightly left or right out of frame for a more passive and neutral effect. You can shoot their interview in an ultra-wide shot to denote a larger-than-life significance, or you can shoot them in a very tight close-up shot to have a claustrophobic effect. Really, it's up to you. How you compose your shots and the meaning behind it may translate differently in post, depending on how you pair your interview with your B-roll shots. B-roll is the supplementary footage that you use to intercut with your A-roll, your main footage, or your interview. Oftentimes, B-roll can be extremely helpful in covering up mistakes, but at best, it can propel your story forward. You should strive to capture B-roll that is meaningful or adds significance to your story. So for example, if I were capturing a story in Indiana, Pennsylvania, I would capture a lot of B-roll of the town so that I can characterize the place that my story takes place in. And when it comes to editing, there's just about a million different editing softwares that you can choose. There's iMovie, Final Cut, Movie Maker, Adobe Pro, Sony Vegas, the list goes on. Some of these are free and some of these you have to pay for. Obviously, the ones that you pay for come with a few more bells and whistles, but there are a lot of creative workarounds that you can use on free softwares to get the same desired effect. So it's really up to you what you choose. When it comes to editing, you can either edit during your filming process so that you can get a more solid understanding of what the story is that you're putting together, or you can collect all your materials and edit at the end. I'd suggest you first start by listening to your interview and constructing your story with sound bites first. This way, you can start to build your story arc. Next, review your B-roll and see if you can construct meaningful sequences. And place your B-roll wherever it feels relevant with the sound bites until you have a completed edit.
This is the only thing that remains the same during this lockdown. I first heard about it when it was still in China, and maybe when the first case was in the United States, I think in Washington. I remember thinking, okay, this is maybe a little bit to be concerned about, or just be aware of. But now, like, the entire world has like kind of changed. Going to the grocery store or going outside to take a walk, it's obviously strange. And the strangest part is kind of the social aspect of it. It feels weird to have to, when I'm walking past somebody, to have to make sure I'm maintaining 6 feet. So if I see someone walking towards me, I scoot to the right or to the left or whatever. An unsocial thing. And it feels weird to have to do that. I was at the grocery store a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, and I had these reusable shopping bags, and some guy was commenting on them, asking me where I got them and everything. And I wanted him to stop. You know, I didn't want to talk to him. And it's nothing against him. Any other situation, I would totally tell him where I got him, whatever. But every part of my brain was saying, like, dude, don't talk to me. And I don't like feeling like that. I hope we can go back to normal. I hope that the handshake isn't dead. I hope that I can talk to someone, even a stranger, within 6 feet. I hope we don't have to change everything about the way we live our lives. But when it comes to the reality, I really don't know. Because 3 months ago, I was living my life like this was not going down at all. So no one can really accurately guess how things are going to change. You know, we're about a month and a half into the lockdown, and understandably people are starting to get kind of stir crazy, and they want to go back to work, and they want to see their friends, and they want to go to the mall. And I feel the same way. I want to go back to work, and I live right by the city, and I want to go to the city. I want to go to the movie theater. I want to do all that stuff. I'm itching to do all that stuff. But I know the reality. And I know that the longer I stay at home, the sooner stuff opening up safely will come.
This workshop just scratches the surface of documentary filmmaking, but it's more than enough to get you started. I want to thank Pennsylvania Rural Art Alliance, Spruce Arts, and the Pennsylvania Council on the Arts for making this possible and promoting the arts in Pennsylvania. Now get out there and tell your story.